Community Beacon, Fridays at 6:30 EST, with your hosts Michael Seville and Joel Simmons. A channel whose focus is liberty. A place where the lessons discussed and taught will create openings to a more open and freer mindset. A mindset where you may reach the height of your potential and excel. Here are your hosts, Mike and Joel.
Welcome, everybody. Back in the place to be, Community Beacon. It's Friday night. It's 6:30. You know we're here. I'm glad that you guys are here. I'm here with the host with the most. My co-host with the most, Mr. Joel Simmons of the Tenacity Foundation, sipping on the coffee. You may not know, it's a pre-recording. I'm gonna let you guys know right now. It's late night. We're getting it together. The brother has had some coffee. I'm scared to drink my coffee because I feel like I'll be up all night. But we're here to make it happen. At the end of the day, listen. Some housekeeping rules. You guys know the drill. Subscribe, share, click that like button. We appreciate each and every one of you guys for tuning in every Friday night here at Community Beacon. My brother, what's going on? How are we doing?
All right. We're glad to be here. I'm glad to be here. Mike, it's good to see you one more time. Man, we are getting it done. We're putting it in there.
Yeah.
Hey, listen, Mike, we can't forget this. Listen, y'all got to make sure you are out on Monday nights. Why? Motivational Mike Monday, 9 o'clock. All right.
I'm almost like demotivational, Mike. I'm just giving you what it is you need to do. The tangible things that need to get done.
No, that's motivation. That's motivation. My brother was out there. It was a short session too, like 14 minutes. I'm sitting in there trying to type something in there. He's like, all right, peace. I'm like, all right. Well, you dropped the knowledge on him. You dropped the knowledge and you got up out of there. So I can appreciate it.
Go. Appreciate you, brother.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, so now, and then remember, we just dropped a new episode on It Starts With Me, right? New episode. So if you have a chance to check that out, Wednesdays, 12:30. This week, we had a brother named Samuel Hoffman. And that man has been all over the place, different continents. Got a great story about how he started to sell cars, Ferraris and stuff like that in his backyard. So it's kind of crazy. He's been through a whole lot of stuff. So anyway, check it out. All right. And then, of course, tonight, Community Beacon, 6:30. All right. That's where we at. This is what we're doing. Like, love. If there's anything I learned from a man, Sam Hoffman, hit the love button. It generates a different response inside of the algorithm. We need the love. We need the subscriptions. We need the follows. All right. Anyway, let's get into it. Once again, you all remember we are talking about legacy. That's what it's all about this month, this season right now. It's all about the legacy. All right. So we want to make sure that we're talking about the legacy, that we're building the legacy. Some of you all are out there wondering about what the legacy is. And we ended up, kind of like taking legacy and dividing it into like 3 different pieces. The ideology, the mindset, the knowledge, the tangible assets, the finance, the reputation, and the character development, right? So today we're going down a different road. We want to talk about challenges. That's what we want to talk about. We want to talk about some challenges, that comes along with building legacy, and it is what it is. So that's what we're on, challenges. And then we also want to talk about, some of the joys that you have when you're building a legacy, because, there are some joys in building a legacy. So we got the challenges and we got the joys. All right. So time to get back in it. All right, brother. Let's go. Let's talk about some challenges. Let me kind of phrase it in a question, right? So what kind of challenges have you faced ever since you realized what you were doing was developing a legacy?
That's an interesting question, and I kind of wanted to go off of challenges, like on a whole. What are some of the challenges that most people are going to come across? Some challenges and some things that some pitfalls that we can avoid, because what I don't want to have to do is have to work 2 times, 3 times, 4 times as hard. It's already tough creating the unfair advantage. What you don't want is to have a lot of these roadblocks going up against you while you're doing it. So I want to bring up some stats, especially about what's going on. We know that with legacy, one of the things about legacy is what we end up passing down. So how do we pass down as much as possible, and keep as much as we can? So there's a couple of things that we need to kind of focus on, that I advise you focus on. And do better than me. This is some of the things I'm going to teach my children. Certain things to do better than me. Number 1 is not planning properly. Not planning properly in order to pass these things down. When you pass on, there's something called probate. There's inheritance taxes. There's a plethora of things. There's family members who may think they didn't get what they were due. And then there's, of course, lawyers. There's lawyers who will take their unfair share doing their job. But what ends up happening is a lot of people's assets, a lot of people's finances end up going to the lawyers. People end up fighting. There's a lot of infighting, and what happened, and this all can be prevented. This all can be prevented by having proper planning. But having improper planning can leave you with nothing. I knew a guy, close friend of mine, real good guy too, where his father passed on. His father owned a lot of real estate. So what happened was, I would err on the side of his father kind of thought ahead of these things. And actually, the next part I'm going to talk about kind of goes into it. But you had these family members long lost, or what do you call those, brother, when they come out of nowhere? There's a word for it. These
I mean, I understand what you're saying. You know, it's just like, I don't want to put any bad names out there right now.
Right now, it's not a bad name, but it's people who you never knew before. All of a sudden, you got a brother from this side, which can happen and happens. You got a cousin, you got a grand, like that, and you got to understand. Let me tell you something real quick, because of improper planning. If you have children outside of your marriage or not within that same marriage, and you pass on without leaving proper instruction, wills, trust, etc., what can happen is that you would have to split half. 50% will go to the outside family. You could have one child outside of the family. In your family, you have 4 with your new wife or your wife or whatever the case may be, and your wife and kids will have to split 50-50 with this other child that comes from outside of the family. A lot of these things, once again, can be prevented by proper planning. You need to start planning for your estate while you're here. Death comes like a thief in the night. Ooh. Right? Like we know neither the time, the place, the minute, or the hour of when it comes. So we need to be prepared, right? So that's a huge challenge, and I don't know if you want to talk on that, brother, because I'll go a little bit deeper into. There's about 3 more things I got to talk about in regards to the challenges. So improper planning is one. So how can we negate that? We need to have proper planning. Start figuring this stuff out. Let's not wait until the end for families to have to throw fish. I'm not throwing fish fries. Matter of fact, when I come to anybody's funeral, I'm just coming to eat, man. I'm coming to eat. I'm coming to celebrate the life, and I'm going home. We got to be, worst kind of worst, we got to be able to bury ourselves. Do not leave that, and I'm being facetious when I say it, but do not leave that burden on your remaining family members. to have to bury you. Let's let that be one less thing that they have to worry about. And beyond that, also to stop the infighting, because what happens when people pass on, emotions are everywhere, especially if you were strong, if you were a pillar within your family, if you were, if you were that rock, if you were that, part of that foundational. When you pass, there's feelings that are going everywhere. And so you want it to be properly planned out. This person gets this person gets this is how things are going to be disseminated. All of this can come from proper planning. Or let's even talk about if you were to be incapacitated. Like, you don't have to pass on, you could be incapacitated. These things happen overnight. The brother is a paramedic, been doing that business for how long, brother? And I'm
15
sure
years.
And so you've seen these things where a person is perfectly fine, and then you arrive on the scene and they're no longer who they were, right? So
true.
we have to have proper planning. Another reason to have good proper planning is Uncle Sam. Good old Uncle Sam, if you're living in the good old United States. And I spoke a little bit earlier about the probate. When your assets go to probate, you have to, if it's over a certain amount, I want to say it's over $75,000. If you have assets that add up to over $75,000, if you have debtors, if you have, things that are owed, these people want their money. Even when you pass, even though you've passed on, they still want their money. However, you can circumnavigate a lot of these different things. You don't have to go through the court systems. If you start leaving, making sure that, here's one of the things that, something simple. Make sure at your bank you leave a beneficiary for your savings account, your checkings account. Something as simple as that can go from all they have to do is go in and show a death certificate to now you can't access this. It has to go through the probate process, which can last anywhere between 3, 6, 9, it can go on forever. Let someone challenge the it can go on forever. Leave a beneficiary for your checking account. If there's $3,000 to $5,000 in there, why does someone have to pay you? It sucks that you have to pay somebody $3,500 to get $5,000 out of the bank. Now you got $1,500. Who gets that? The probate lawyer, right? So let's just something as simple as that, going into your bank saying, hey, I need to leave a beneficiary for this account, and name the person who you need to deem as the beneficiary.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Yes, sir. I want to add on to something like that.
Go ahead, please.
And it's just, for when you're out here, you're thinking about this proper planning. I think it's important for us to understand that we don't know everything.
Yeah.
So with that being said, just going back to kind of what we were discussing before, the ideology, the mindset, knowledge, literacy, this is one of the big things that Mike had brought up on the first Legacy show. And it's just about, you don't know what you don't know.
Right.
It's very difficult to learn what you don't know, which is part of the reason why we have this community beacon. It's so that we can put information out there, whether we touch on it lightly or whether we dive deep into it. It can give you a thought process to look beyond the measures that you have been looking, get outside of the box. So when it comes down to knowledge, you need to go out and you need to invest in your financial literacy. Got to do that. Some of the stuff that you're talking about right now, Mike, is like, this is really important. I don't know about our viewers out there, but I've just dealt with too many people who have had family members that have passed away, and we are passing the collection pan, so to speak, to get $100 from everybody, because our brothers and sisters cannot bury their family members without getting this $2,000 or $3,000. I mean, we're not talking about a huge amount of money. I know in some cases, many people may be saying, $2,000, $3,000, that's a lot of money. But really, think about this. I asked somebody one day when I was telling them about this coaching business. There's a couple of people that I speak with, and I give them a bunch of tips. Matter of fact, I give everybody tips. Listen, think about this. How many times have you been a millionaire or close to one? So those of you all that are working, You might be thinking, I ain't never been a millionaire. Okay, so maybe you haven't. But think about it this way. How old are you? You know, are you 30? You know, are you 20? Are you 30? You 40? You 50? You 60? You 70? I don't know. So think about this. Calculate how much you have made each year over the last 10 years. Go back 20 years. If you had made certain decisions 20 years ago, I mean, I think we talked about this. The best time to buy real estate was 30 years ago. The next best time is today. So if you were to go back that amount of time and say, since the point in time that I started working, you know, I remember this job, I made 20,000. I remember this job, I made 30. Oh, I started making 50,000 then. Maybe you started making 100,000. When you start to do something like that, Mike, there's a few people I asked that question. All of a sudden they were like, And it got quiet on the phone because they realized they had been a millionaire once, twice, 3 times a lady. I think that's how the song goes. Yeah. So listen, financial planning. If you don't know what to do with your money, you won't do the right thing with your money. Period, point blank. Because you just don't know. And you don't know what you don't know. So invest the money to get a financial planner. You know, check them out. See if you get one that you feel comfortable with, and then tell them what you have. You know, I think we talked about this in one of our other shows. You know, especially in our culture. You know, being a black man, we don't go around telling people, "Hey, listen, I got $20,000 in the bank. I got $50,000 in the bank. I got $100,000 in the bank." You know, now. I go to work with some guys that aren't black, and they have no problem with saying, you know, I got $200,000 or $300,000. You know, I got 4 houses. They ain't got no problem with it because I can't do anything with what they have anyway. I can't make them buy something. I can't make them not. Just like some of them don't have any problem with saying, I ain't got a dime. So the thing is like when you say these things, somebody may actually want to help you to learn something, you know? So just think about that when it comes down to it, when it comes down to this proper planning, because if you're going to plan properly, the first thing you need to do is know what you are planning for. Understand your finances.
Understand your finances, people. And your brother talked about the burial. You can go price out some life insurance, burial insurance. We're talking about go invest something for $10,000. That's all you want. That might cost you $15-$20 a month. 10 to 20, you know, depending on your age, of course. Go talk to somebody about it, man. It's time to have these conversations. Do not have the burden of leaving your loved ones to having to pass the plate in order to bury you. No more GoFundMe. Okay, cool. Let me get into number 2, a challenge. And this is incumbent upon you parents, and as well. I mean, of course, we reached the age of 18, so we can think. But you know, parents, we need to have this conversation now. The cat's out the bag. Student loan debt accounts for 40% of Black wealth. Every year, 40% of our community's money is going towards student loan debt. And it's not just in our community, because it's across. There is a crisis. There is a student loan crisis. The colleges changed their mode of operation and became a full-fledged business. So I'm not against colleges. Listen, I went to college. I totally understand that. I'm all for higher education. It definitely makes sense, but we have to make sense of it at this point in time. And I'm gonna talk about this, and on the next portion that I'm gonna talk about, we have to start thinking. We have to start thinking. All of us did not have to go to college. A lot of these things were feeding certain egos, whether it was our parents' egos, our own egos. We were just following, thinking that this was the plan. And I get it. Coming from a strong Caribbean background, it was huge. Like, you went to college, that was it, because that was like the dream. You go to college and then you get out and you're making millions. as brothers put it. But that's not the case. So we have to really come up with a strategy and figure this college thing out. Right? That's the solution. We have to make the adjustment. We are playing the game and we don't know the rules. So if 40% of our money is going towards student loan debt, it's 40%, which is a lot. You know what's the ratio? Now you can't even start to build certain assets. You can't buy houses. There's more things to it than this, because of course we're not marrying. 1 in every 4 black women will get married. 67% of black men are single and childless. So now we can't afford anything because we have what is it? 70% of our women of our children come from unwed mothers. So what we're having 2 separate households. So now we have this child debt. We have 2 separate households with children, and this, you take it from me. You got to work your tail off in order to make it happen. But it is what it is. Especially if you made your bed, you got to sleep in it. So don't feel pity for me or whatever. Because I'm gonna make sure I'm gonna go out there and get it. Now I know I need to work twice as hard, but we need to start thinking this thing. This game that's being played is of detriment to not only ourselves, but it's of detriment to our legacy. These are huge challenges. So once again, 40% of our wealth is already just going towards student loans. And then I handed on the last thing in regards to the unwed mothers. Another crisis we're having is the child support industry. It's a $115 billion industry every year. $115 billion, and each state is different. So now we have, you go to a state like California, and the guy is paying $500. The mom is getting $80 out of it, and the rest of the money is going towards the state. And I think Texas is pretty similar. So now you got this guy who's got $500, who has to pay $500, which is coming out of his household income. Well, what does the average black man make? Average black man makes $47,000. $47,000 across the board. So if $500, and then this is before taxes. So now after taxes, if you got $500 coming out, and I think they can take up to 20% actually, but I'm just gonna go on this $500 tangent. So if $500 is coming out every month, that adds up. That's what, it's 5,000, $6,000. That's $6,000 coming out before taxes. So you got your $6,000, you got taxes, and then you got to eat, live, and you got a separate household that you got to maintain. And on the other end, the average black woman makes, with her college degree, with $30-something thousand in average in student loans, the average black woman makes $27,000. I'll give you $30,000. Right? So now you got $30,000 separate household. So now you still have to maintain and taking care of these children. And you're mad at him, he's mad at you because this money's coming out, and this money, you're not getting enough money in order to maintain a child, because $6,000 is not a lot for a child for a year. That's not a lot. You should really budget about $20,000 for a child.
Not in America. Not in America. Maybe somewhere else, but in the States, $6,000 is not going to cut it. We all know that.
Yeah. The child has to eat. If the child has daycare, the child has X amount of needs. So we're all matched up. But a lot of these things can be avoided. Take it from me. I'm telling you right now. Because that is one of the biggest detriments. And then all that and just to add on to it, so you need to be careful about who you are with. That's improper planning, right? Because if you all can't figure out how to live together, but you all have a child, that's where all the wealth is going. So now, if you're already making $47,000 on average, she's making $30-something grand. What is she saving? What kind of assets can she buy off of this $30,000? What kind of assets can you do? What kind of assets can you buy at $47,000? rent goes up every year. Right now, I know a lot of you are looking at it. Rent is crazy right now. I saw a house in Wellington that they were selling right now. It's a 55 plus community, $6,000 a month for rent, and somebody's paying it.
Mm-hmm.
You understand what I mean? So these are some of the challenges that I kind of looked up. Some of these stats. Please go. You can check my stats in regards to what's going on. These are the challenges that we're having towards wealth. A lot of these things can be circumvented by proper planning and by just regular old thinking. What you got to say on it, brother?
I mean, I think that when it all comes down to it, Mike, just what you just said, I was going to end it with that same thing, just going back to number one on the list of what you gave us, proper planning. Listen, I mean, for everyone out there, this is not necessarily the easiest thing to do. And I'm going to go back to that reference dealing with real estate. The best time to purchase real estate was 30 years ago. The next best time is today. So don't beat yourself up because you didn't plan well for your kids. Don't beat yourself up because you already have two separate households. Don't beat yourself up because you have student loan debt. What you need to do is get yourself a financial planner, invest in it. Sometimes it's kind of crazy. Mike and I were discussing this maybe about, 2 months ago, something like that, maybe 3 months ago. And I was telling him that I had invested, I'm a life coach. And I was telling him I invested in a physical trainer. He was like, yeah. I was like, yeah, well, here's the deal. I realized that there is somebody who knows more about this than I do. And I need that. I'm in the need of this type of help right now, this physical trainer, because I have become so active in what I do that I go from morning up to sundown just about. And I continue to make sure I put time in for my family. I make sure that there's time in for my work. And while I'm at work, I make sure I'm doing my work. I make better of use of my time at work because of the mindset that I have. And then when I come home, I'm running this thing and I'm putting this to work, and I've hired people. So now I have more people that are a part of my family that are waiting for me to give them some type of direction, and I'm grateful. I got some really good employees. Nonetheless, proper planning. So if I didn't do it before, I got to do it now. That's what I would leave. As far as the challenges go, I think, Mike, you put 3 really, really, really good things out there for people to really consider. And I mean, all of those things are tied to finance. They're tied to the character of an individual, because different individuals' characters are going to allow them to understand this more, or it's going to be a mental block. But you said that in the beginning with the roadblocks. If you got roadblocks, come see me. Give me a call, So, I mean, I think that was great. You ready to go on? You want to tackle some of these joys?
We tackle the joys. Let's get into it.
Okay. All right. So, I wanted to do my piece in the form of quotes, really. Okay. Because I have a few different things that, I wanted to discuss when it came down to the joys of things. The first one is this. Frederick Douglass said, if there is no struggle, there is no progress. So I just want you all to think about that for a moment, because if there's no struggle, there's no progress. This is very close to the African proverb. It was the same thing. No struggle, no progress is what we used to use as an African proverb. But Frederick Douglass said this. So what exactly does that mean? Well, to me right now, it means that when I'm in the thick of it, I know that I am working towards progress. When I'm laid back and my feet are up, and I'm sipping on some iced tea or some lemonade, and I think about all the things that are undone, I know that there's one of two things happening. Either I'm taking a much needed break, or I'm not doing what I should be doing at that time. You know, either it's the recreation time that I need, or the time that I'm spending with my family, or the scheduled time that I have to make sure that I'm okay, or I'm not doing what I should be doing at that time. So having the struggle has become part of my joy. I know that sounds kind of crazy, but I know when I'm in the struggle and I'm like, I'm building brain muscle, mass. I'm building integrity. I'm building strength. I am building my ability to overcome something that is difficult. I'm challenging myself. And just like any great athlete, you know, they get a lot of joy. I mean, I'm an athlete too. You know, I played basketball, I played soccer, I played football, you know, and I've swam. And there's a whole lot of joy in getting that medal. But the medal part is very short-lived. It's like you get up there and they're like, here's your trophy. And you're like, and then it's done. It's over. But when you're in the thick of it and you do the crossover and somebody's ankles get broke and you go up for that jump shot and it's like, boom. You're like, that feels good. And then you run back down the court and you block the shot. You grab the ball, you toss it to somebody else, and then they hit the jumper. It feels good because going through it. That's the hard part, is actually going through it. Back there in the practice, when you're practicing and you're like, oh man, another jump shot. And you hit the 30th, the 40th, the 50th, the 60th, the 70th, the 80th. And then you realize that you hit 50 out of your 80 jump shots. You're like, ugh. There's something about that struggle that develops the integrity, that develops the individual. It builds you. So my first thing that I would say is one of the greatest joys is going to be when you learn how to love the struggle, to respect the struggle. Because when you are struggling, you know you're making progress. What'd you say, brother?
I love it, brother. I love it. It's that's when you know you're moving. You know, when you're in the middle of it and you use that extra oomph. You know, you take it past that. It's almost like you just use that energy. You exert that extra energy. Now the next morning, you got to exert that next. You know, you reach that point, so now you just push into the next point. You got to push through. You got to push through. It reminds me of just lifting weight. You start off with 135, and that's tough. Then you put on a 5-pound plate, and then that's tough, and you push through it. Then the next week you come back, you put on a 10-pound plate, and you're just pushing through it. You're just pushing through it because what happens is that you tear that muscle, it rebuilds, and you come back stronger than you were before. I love it. Good job.
I like it. All right, so listen, the next one is by Dale Carnegie. So most of the important things in the world have been accomplished by people who kept on trying when there seemed to be no hope at all. Once again, you know, it's like going through the struggle. When I think about quotes like this, when I think about men that have been so successful, when I think about these types of things, it reminds me that, okay, if I'm putting in this work and it seems like it's just not going to work, but I'm putting in this work, my hope is to see my vision come to fruition. And I'm giving everything, you know? There's a whole lot of joy in it. Listen, let me give you one example. Life. If that's not a great enough example of joy, then I don't know what is. Because it is one of the most important things that you will ever do in your life is live. I don't think you can do anything more important than that, than to live a good life, to live a life where somebody would look at you and look at your life, or look at your life after you're gone and say, they taught me so much, whatever it is. They left something, they instilled something, they planted a seed, you know? Even Jesus said, if I be lifted up from the earth, I draw all men unto me. He's talking about if I die, I'll draw more to me than I would when I was alive. And he did. He did. He did. Because now people are drawn to Jesus across the world. While he was alive, they didn't know about him across the world. He was the Middle Eastern Jesus. Everybody didn't know who this man was. But now he's the Western Jesus too. He's the Eastern Jesus too. He's the Northern Jesus too. He's the Southern Jesus too. He's the Central Jesus too. And it may not be everybody, but because of the life that he lived, many people everywhere. And it doesn't matter what religion you are in or anything like that. That's not the point. The point is that life, one of the greatest joys that you can ever have. And so that's a struggle. And our hope is that, we can leave something, because one day it's going to come and you're going to be gone. I'm going to be gone. We're all going to be gone. That's it. There's no trophy, You don't get a trophy and then go in the grave. For my belief, I get a trophy after I get out the grave. All right. What you say, brother?
I love it. I love the quote. You just got to keep pushing, man. Keep pushing.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. How about this one? You want to add something to this one?
You go ahead. Keep it going. I'm loving it.
All right. So Biz Stone. Timing, perseverance, 10 years of trying will eventually make you look like an overnight success. That's what my brother was just saying. I think this quote is just beautiful, y'all.
Yeah.
It's not that, these things immediately give you the joy. It's that when you start to conceptualize and when you get around somebody who's positive, somebody who's inspired, and people who have made it, you'll begin to realize that once they've made it, like I've talked to millionaires, gone by millionaires' house, and I'm sitting there talking to them, and some of them are wearing flip-flops. You never would have even guessed they were millionaires. Never would have guessed it. But one of the things is like becoming a millionaire. That first million was hard, but then it's like it becomes a little easier. And then they would say things like, but hitting that 10 million was difficult. Hitting 100 million was difficult. So there's always these plateaus no matter where you go. So for some of us, it may be 50,000 feels like it's impossible. But then you hit 50,000. Then it's like, yeah, well, if I hit 100,000, I know everything will be taken care of. Then you hit 100,000. Going back to what Mike said with challenges, if you don't have any financial literacy, you may not know what to do with that money, and you may actually use it all up before you get there. Nonetheless, when you put in the work, it appears that it just happened overnight. It's just like a baby. A baby sitting there, they're crawling on the ground, they're smiling, they're laughing. They get up, they fall down, they get up, they fall down, they get up, they fall down. Who knows how many times they do it. And before you know it, they're walking. And we as parents, we kind of remember it, but a lot of our family, they're like, man, it's just like yesterday they were, laying on their back, and now they're walking. And then you see the family again, they're like, wow, it's just like yesterday they were just standing, barely could get that little bobbled head up over the coffee table. And now they running through the house. Man, it's just like they was just running through the house, sipping on a sippy cup. And now they're in grade school. Man, it's just like they're in grade school and now they're going to college, because time waits for no man. So put the work in now and get joy out of it. You should have a good time working what you do. Learn how to be passionate about the things you do, or maybe change the things that you do to do the things that make you more excited, happy, and glad to do it.
I love it. Yeah, and it's the person you become in that time. right? Because we're talking about the person you become in 10 years. If you're the same person, and this is, of course, the Muhammad Ali quote, if you're the same person at 25 or at 50 that you were at 25, then that just means that you didn't do nothing. Essentially, you didn't do anything. So it's just the person that you become while being that 50,000, getting to that 50,000. Then the person you become when you get to that 100,000. It's a whole different situation besides just winning some money from the lotto or something. Because oftentimes when that happens, you're going to lose it because you never became that person. You're not doing the things that you need to do every day, the little habits, the little things that you pick up along the way that make you better, that make you in the 10 years. And here's the thing too, time is going to happen anyways. You might as well put towards some type of laudable, I'm not even saying something that you're passionate about. Put it towards some type of laudable work. That when you look back 10 years, you can say, man, this is where I'm proud. This is where I'm at. This is where I am now. Do not be the same person. Do not have the same, I'm hoping you're not having the same conversations in 10 years. I'm hoping you're not making the same amount of money in 10 years. I'm hoping you are a different person so that when you look back, you're like, I don't even know who that guy was. Right? Awesome, brother.
That's it. Overnight success. That's what it looks like. I love it. So listen, let's talk about family a little bit. So sometimes we're struggling with family, right? But the struggle in family is to turn love into happiness. That's what Robert Root said. I kind of like that quote right there too, because sometimes amongst family members you have disagreements. It ain't working out so well, but timing and perseverance. Sometimes it's not the right time to say I'm sorry. I'm just gonna be real with you. Sometimes it's just not the right time to say I'm sorry. Some people they get over things real quick. Some people they don't. Yeah, I mean, if you're living at home with somebody, I think you need to figure out how to work it out a lot quicker. But if they're at a distance, sometimes you have to work on it. You got to put some effort into it. Because one thing's for sure, when they put the dirt on somebody's face because they locked them up in that basket, there's no more saying I'm sorry then. That's an empty sorry. And the only thing you're left with is whatever you were carrying before. So I like to think that there's some joy. This is a hard one, y'all. I know some of you out there are like, that ain't no joy. I can almost hear it right now. But it's that struggle once again, when you're struggling and you feel as if the family is struggling, family is struggling together, family that prays together, stays together, a family that struggles together, progresses together. So if you're struggling together as a family, then you have the opportunity of not just turning that love into happiness, but turning that love into joy. Because joy is the fulfillment of happiness.